Hello, and welcome to Lightwork Presents Everything is Connected, the Sharjah Biennial 16 edition, sponsored by the Sharjah Art Foundation.
I'm your host, Folasade Ologundudu.
The Sharjah Art Foundation is an advocate, catalyst, and producer of contemporary art within the Emirate of Sharjah and the surrounding region. In dialogue with the international arts community, the foundation advances an experimental and wide-ranging programmatic model that supports the production and presentation of contemporary art, preserves and celebrates the distinct culture of the region, and encourages a shared understanding of the transformational role of art. Organized by the foundation, Sharjah Biennial's 16th edition, SB16, convenes under the title To Carry, a multivocal and open-ended proposition, exploring the ever-expanding questions of what it means to carry and how to carry it. SB16 is an invitation to encounter the different formations and positions of the 5 curators, as well as the constellation of resonances they have gathered. Curated by Aliyah Swastika, Amal, Kalaf, Megan Tamati Quinnell, Natasha Jin, and Zainab Oz, the biennial unveiled more than 650 works by nearly 200 participants, including more than 200 new commissions. The biennial was launched on February 6, 2025, and will continue through June 15, 2025. During this exclusive capsule season, I'll engage in dialogue and discourse with artists participating in the Sharjah Biennial who are presenting new commissions. Throughout the series, you'll hear from artists across the globe, from Australia and Kenya to London and Nigeria and more. You'll hear us discuss a wide range of topics, from each artist's practice to their reflections on our society and the questions they investigate through their work. Please join me as I share these dynamic conversations with you, exploring the ins and outs and inner worlds of artists participating in the Sharjah Biennial with their newly commissioned works. Let's go!
On this episode, I'm joined by Kaloki Nyamai as we discuss his newly commissioned works presented for the 16th edition of the Sharjah Biennial, elucidated through the curatorial theme To Carry, asking questions such as what does it mean to carry a home, a history, a language, a legacy, and a lineage. Kaloki Nyamai is a multidisciplinary artist working with installation, painting, and sculpture, living in Nairobi. Born in Kenya from an early age, his mother introduced him to painting and taught him to draw, fostering an everlasting interest in art throughout his life. He studied interior design at the Buruburu Institute of Fine Arts, and then pursued painting after working in other creative fields. His large-scale paintings and mixed-media installations intricately explore historical narratives, examining their resonance in the present. Using materials like acrylic paint, rope, photo transfers, and stitched yarn, Nyamai's free-hanging pieces evoke the healing of historical wounds and a collective yearning for renewal. Rooted in Kenya's rich heritage, particularly of the Kamba people, Nyamai draws inspiration from traditions passed down to him by his mother and grandmother, and the dynamic rhythms of contemporary life in Nairobi. In this episode, he reflects on the themes of community and new beginnings, expressed in his work on display. Nyamai delves into his inspiration, drawn from ancestral storytelling, and the importance of maintaining cultural heritage through art. He emphasizes the impact of oral traditions in African cultures and shares insights into his unique use of materials that link his art to cultural and historical narratives. Additionally, Nyamai highlights the Kamene Art Residency, which he launched in 2023 to promote artistic growth and cultural exchange in Nairobi, which has blossomed into a cultural center. Let's dive into my next episode with Kaloki Nyamai.
My name is Kaloki Nyamai. I am from Kenya. I'm an artist practicing and creating work in Kenya.
Let's talk about the works that you're showing in this edition, the 16th edition of the Sharjah Biennial. What's happening in the works on view?
That is a new body of work that I created personally for Sharjah. And these works were a new beginning of like a death of the last body of work or series that I have been doing. So I started this series as a new beginning, which is called The New Dawn, after a series that took 2 years, which was called Dining in Chaos. So it was like a refreshing of a new body of work to start a new dawn.
Beautiful. And if you dig a little bit deeper, how did you rest on the decision to create and to include these new bodies of work in the biennial?
Came at the right time because it is where I wanted to end the other series, and I wanted to have a new beginning of a new body of work where I wanted to express how I felt, and it was such a perfect moment for the work. So when I started to create, it was just flowing, and yeah, so everything just flew and everything came to work. If you look at the title, to carry, and then you look at the work also, especially the work inside the room, it is like a huge body of work of people sitting down and having a communal. It's like a newness, it's like a togetherness, and this worked very well with the subject. And I felt this was a perfect space and moment to express this body of work as their reflection of a new dawn, but in this time, their reflection of bringing people together. So yeah, I think it was so much connected to the whole theme of Sharjah Biennial.
Yes, I'd like to turn a little bit to your artistic practice. Can you speak about your artistic practice as a continuation of the ancestral lineage of storytelling, where you
Mm.
draw on the stories of your grandmother that she told you about the people, which is a Bantu ethnic group in eastern Kenya? How do
Mm.
you use the idea of continuing this practice of sharing ancestral knowledge through storytelling in your work?
It became quite a need in a time some years back when I realized there was a point when I was given a show and I realized that things were quite different and everyone was communicating, but I found that I needed to communicate it from within because based on everything that I created, it was me, identity, me as a black person, me as a someone from a different background. I realized the more I dug about me is the more I dug me as a community. And so I started looking deep into my lineage. Where is me coming from? And I realized the more I'm looking into me, the more I'm realizing I'm looking to other me, which is other people who are connected to the same line. So it's like a tree, like a family tree. So the more I would dig and talk to my grandmother about her past, and I talk to her about her mother and her grandmother, I got so much information. Then I realized I can actually speak about, and also it's information that related to me, which affects so many people. And then for me, I felt like it is good for all this information to share to the generation and the generations to come. So I started exploring more about my lineage, sitting and my grandmother and getting all the stories, sitting with my mother, and then my mother giving me all the information that she knew about. And so through that, I started exploring more. It also affected the material that I started using during that period of time until now.
Yes, you're touching on a few points that I want to dig into a little bit more deeply. The prevalence of oral traditions in African cultures. Can you speak about maybe as you reflect on how knowledge has been transferred down, how it has been passed down to you, and also the ways in which you seek out knowledge today? Does the tradition of oral histories actually impact the way that you, like the visual language that you've created, the way that you're making work, the way that you think about the work? And at the same time, how are you supplementing the oral knowledge that's passed down from other types of research or historical references that you might be bringing in to your work and to your understanding of Kenyan history, Kenyan culture, and its peoples?
So the way I do it first, I decided to focus on one thing, and that was the Kamba culture, which is actually my tribe. And the more I dug is the more I realized other tribes, they have similarities. So the effects over the years were almost similar effects, which through that I realized it's much easier to talk about that. It is in one angle, but actually it touches in different parts of different communities because there's a place where everything becomes connected and then things changes after that. So from my work, I realized the way I can use because most of this information, it was oral story and it was not written. So these stories that got told, it's not written story, but it's just oral, and which means that after my grandmother passed, she passed with all the story that she had. I was the one getting so much information because I needed the information, and I was privileged enough to get information that she never shared with anyone else because it seems that over time people were never interested to know about their past. And I think for me, getting information like that and also being able to share through my work, it stays for a very long time because through the work, years and years to come, people can still learn more about the past and how things used to be.
Beautiful. I love that. I think it's one of those things where you recognize that your past is always a part of your present. And if you
Yeah,
don't know what's happened before you, how
yeah,
can you know where you are and where you're
right.
going to go?
Yeah, exactly. Person, I always find person who doesn't know their past or they don't know their history. You find yourself being vulnerable because what you try to do. Yeah, so someone with no past, someone with no history, they always find themselves in a very vulnerable situation because always someone would like to hold on to something. So you end up holding up to other people's culture, other people's past, or you create your own imagination of the past. And so it is also good for us to know where we come from and to know our past and our history because most of the history that we know in Africa, most parts in Africa, the history start from colonization. And for us, we have much stronger, much vibrant history that we don't explore. And it is beautiful for us to remind ourselves where we're from and we know where we are. Because when you look at European history, there is you go to museum and everybody, regardless whether they were beaten during the world, they delete that part of them being losers, but the only part they put themselves as being heroes. So most of the countries being heroes. But here, when you look at Africa, for us, it's all about conversation about colonization, and that's the only history we talk about. So we just show our weakness, but we have so much in our history that we need to share and we need to talk about. And we have so much pride of culture, arts, and way of life. And it's important to know this. It was quite interesting to know also that operation used to be done in Africa ages ago. People used to go through brain operation, head operation, even though they'll be left with massive scars. But these are not part of the things that we hear. We only know that some of these things came from the West. But actually, these practices used to be here way before, food preservation and everything else. And so it is for us to remind ourselves that we do have a rich history. And through this history, we need to embrace.
I couldn't agree more. And I would say that also with where we are right now, we're in a very special moment in history and also within the contemporary art space where you have a lot of artists of color, artists of the global south, artists of the African diaspora, whose work is being platformed in very important ways that haven't happened historically. And in addition to that, you have more artists of color who are taking agency for themselves by sharing their own story. And they're the ones who are really in the driver's seat narrating the stories and the context of what the work means, which is a huge departure from having someone else speak on your behalf
True.
or in your regard, for better or worse. And so it also feels like a really special time to be an artist and to be making work in this period where you can have, especially an artist of color, can have the agency to speak about their work from the first person. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's true. I feel so much privileged and I feel so proud that I am living this time in my life. I feel honored that I was born a time like this. And maybe other people from other generation felt the same, but I feel honored and privileged that I can actually talk about my work. And even the way I approach my work, I approach it in a very interesting way because if you noticed, all my work are in Kamba. And sometimes people insist on translating, and then some other time people try and find their own translation. But in the process of finding translation is also process of finding history because not so much has been written about my tribe, not so much has been written about Kamba, but all the writings probably hidden in or put in some of a museum like the British Museum. That's when you find stories about who Kamba people were, how they lived and stuff like that. But it is nice that whenever someone reads about or sees the work, they can dig more what that translation means because they are curious to see what exactly this means. And through the curiosity of wanting to find out, they go through this historical journey, which is beautiful to just imagine of that happening. So it is good that I, as an artist, I'm able to create and talk about my work the way I feel, and I'm able to create the works the way I feel created. If I'm not happy, I change it the way I will feel it fits. And I feel also so good that I can talk about something that actually is meaningful about our culture and my lineage and celebration of my cultures.
Let's take a moment and pan back to the opening week of the Sharjah Biennial when I was talking to Kaloki about his newly commissioned work.
Kaloki, we are here. It's the opening week of the Sharjah Biennial 16. You're showing work. It's a new commission of work. Can you tell me a little bit about what is the experience for you been like working with Natasha?
Honest, working with Natasha, not only have we just worked together, but she's taught me a lot. And she's made me see the world in a different way, especially in the work that I produce to the world and the gift that I give to the world. So it's been quite more of a blessing than anything else.
We were here. We met last year during March meeting.
Yeah.
You were here. Natasha was here.
Yeah.
You introduced me to Natasha. So to be coming back to Sharjah and to finally get a chance to really see your work up close and personal and at this scale is such a treat and such a wonderful experience.
Thank you.
What's it like for you to return to Sharjah again?
It's actually amazing because the first time I came for the March meeting was mostly check on the spaces and actually get different spaces and the energy that the spaces give. And actually having an opportunity to have this space was amazing because I came to this place because I feel the energy in the space and you can even feel it. That the works work very well in that space. And then coming back, display the work because I came later to set up the work. And then now I experience observing people because now I'm not experiencing the work so much. It is me observing people experience the work. It is all these episodes are like different feelings. So for me, it's quite.
Have there been any surprises in this opening week that's been a little bit unexpected?
Oh, yeah. The focus is to the artist, which is unbelievable. Actually, the focus is always to lecture, the institution, but here you feel that the focus is to the artist. With this Biennale, it is a special way that it's been done where you feel someone was thinking about.
Yes, I think this is a good opportunity to turn to the curatorial theme, to carry. What do you think about the theme itself, and what does its significance mean to you?
To carry is quite a heavy word, and it might sound simple, but I find it very strong because it means responsibility and it means community, it means care, it means understanding, it means togetherness. To carry, for me, carry is quite a heavy word, and it's bringing together unity. It's also, it sounds like peace. And as in the world that we're living in right now, the more it's becoming more divided, the more it's becoming more violent, which we might think that humanity has learned over years. But the more we live, the more we realize humanity is still the same. So this to carry gives us hope, reminds us of coming together. And so it means so much to me that I'm part of it, something that has hope, something that has care, and something that has a journey of amazing opportunities.
As we round out the episode, just a few more questions. I really love the way that you use material and the way that you drape your works and the way that your works inhabit the spaces in which they are shown in a very visceral and physical way. Can you speak more about specifically your use of material and the choices that you've made artistically and visually in terms of how your work is presented?
Material came as I continued practicing, and over time, I think also materials will add. It's because I'm also experimenting on new form of material. Coming to the history of the choice of the material that I used, one day I had a show. It was really hurting my soul that I had to bring it out, and that body of works I was looking at the book James Baldwin of The Fire Next Time. I decided to do a body of work, and this one I was looking at after the disaster that happened after the invasion of the British, after everything, the killing, the torture, kidnapping, everything that happened to us. And it was so sad after that experience, and where division became so defined that what we're suffering from. I started looking at healing. And when I was looking at healing, I started stitching the bodies of the subjects that I was using. And through these subjects, by stitching, it was like healing, bringing people together after the fire. It was like an accident. When you go through an accident that you are not expecting it, you go and start stitching your body back together. So this body work now in the use of material when it comes to stitching, I was stitching humanity. So it's like the same thing we use here so much time. When people you ask someone, how are you? They always say, I'm fine. The reasons are it's like a belief system that you've already stitched yourself completely together, regardless what you're going through. And so this is how the use of stitching in my work came to be. And also around the canvases, I also decided to stitch. And that one is like a process of healing of a land. It's a process of bringing it together. It's a process of uniting the land. And so that moment of stitching the body is a healing, and then stitching the whole canvas is healing on the land. And so that's where the stitching came from. Canvases, the use of canvases for me, it was a material that I tried with other materials, and that was the only thing that was applicable for me. Even though I'm still, until this time, still looking for something that will express more with my work, especially when it comes to canvas, because canvas has a pretty intense history also in our area, where cotton and stuff like that, which is capitalism, which led to the invasion. But it's a growing process in my work where today I come and find materials that I can actually use. In some time I was using sisal, which plays a big role in my community, and the use of sisal in the work, it is where sisal had a huge resemble in Kamba community, where if you're given a sisal, a rope, it means if it was big, it means that you were given a cow. So depending, if you're given 50 sisals, thick ones, it means you're given 50 cows. And if you're given small sisal, it means that you're given goats and or sheep, but we were more on goats. And then that one will be used as a bride price. And also at the same time, the material was used as dresses. So people will create clothes out of the sisal. And also the same material will be used to hatch houses. So when you're building your hut, you would use the sisal to hatch houses, and also were used for in the farms. It was like a currency. So if you had a sisal, it was like a currency. So you would exchange sisal with anything. So if you wanted something, you can make a sisal and exchange someone with something else, because it became more usable. So it became like a currency. And also it's like the same way as calabash. So which calabash will be designed in different ways, and people, because it was what was available there. So I introduced it to my practice. Also, sometime I would use cow dung in some of the pieces, which historically in my tribe, cow dung was very important because it was a resemble of wealth. If you had so many cows, so all these materials that I use are always materials referring to the past that I am looking at.
It's lovely to be able to reflect on how the choices that you make, these very conscious decisions about how you use material, how those choices can spark conversations, not only with regards to the visual, being able to see the work and experience the work, but also thinking about the context of what the material means and what it's saying as a sort of conversational piece. As we round out the episode, one final question is, in 2023, you launched the Kamene Art Residency, a program designed to foster artistic growth and cross-cultural collaboration in Nairobi. Can you tell us a little bit more about the residency, some of your hopes and dreams with it, and some of the things that you've been working on since you launched it 2 years ago?
It's been an interesting journey, but I'm so happy to see the results, because the idea was to bring artists from different places and they stay together to share ideas. They were not forced to create any work, neither were they supposed to leave any work for the residency, but it was for them to share and understand each other's practice, especially them coming, one being successful and the other one not being successful, and understanding. So it was more to develop more Eastern African artists. And for me, I have seen success for all the artists that have gone through the program. And that was actually the idea. If I could get more artists, so we can have, because I believe for us to create change, or also people need to see that East Africa has amazing artists. And also in Africa, we also have great artists. And that was one of the reason why I opened. So for more opportunity for younger artists or older artists that haven't got opportunity. And I'm so happy that has happened. And in the process of doing that, the space started growing, where many workshops started happening in the space, kids workshops started happening in the space, and different events started happening in the space, where it grew from being just an art residency, it became a cultural center. Now in the process of being a cultural center, I've realized also the space has become smaller. It used to be so big, but now it's become smaller. Now I acquired another building so I can expand. I can expand it to be bigger because extra spaces is needed. At the moment, we'll be having a meetup of all the artists who are running spaces across Africa or people who are running their own spaces across Africa. We're going to have a huge meeting in Nairobi in June, which is amazing. And then there's a program, 2 international artists will be coming through the year, and then more local artists joining together. So that's how far the program is. At the moment, we are in the process of building the other one, hoping to finish in next month or next month part 2.
That's really so incredible that you've decided to take the fact that you've had success in your career and invest back in your home and invest in artists in Kenya and create a space that has grown in 2 years from a residency to really being a cultural center, a place where more than just the creation of work happens, but where people can connect and convene. And the way that you're thinking about creating change from the ground up is really wonderful to see. So I just want to say thank you so much for a wonderful episode. It's been great chatting with you, learning more about your practice. And for everyone listening, if you have an opportunity to visit the Sharjah Biennial 16, please go and see Kaloki's incredible installations as part of the biennial. Thank you so much, Kaloki, for joining me on an episode.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate for you creating your time to interview me.
That was my episode with Kaloki Nyamai. I want to give a big thank you to Kaloki for joining me on the show.
Thank you for tuning in to this capsule season of Lightwork Presents Everything is Connected, the Sharjah Biennial 16 edition, sponsored by the Sharjah Art Foundation. These episodes were recorded both on site and remotely during the opening week and after the opening of the 16th edition of the Sharjah Biennial. During the episodes, you will hear the sights and sounds of the local environment from the various sites across the Emirate of Sharjah where the biennial takes place. I'm your host, Folasade Ologundudu, and I'll see you next time. Stay tuned for my next episode. As always, stay motivated, stay inspired, and stay up. Peace and love to all.